Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
WMAL. 7:06 this day before Thanksgiving Day. I am hyped for this Thanksgiving. Listen, we're in a good mood because the election was, well, glorious. And then, of course, Thanksgiving, we get our family back together. Everyone enjoys themselves. I got people coming in from out of town that I haven't seen in a while. It's going to be wonderful. And then you sit down, usually as a Detroit Lions fan, as a kid who grew up in Detroit, it was always great that the Lions would play on Thanksgiving, except it wasn't, because they would always embarrass us nationwide. And yet this year, they're the best team in football. I am so hyped for the Lions. Do you see my shirt? Do you love my Detroit Lions shirt?
I am the reverse. I spent so much time watching the Patriots, not necessarily on Thanksgiving Day, but obviously dominate, and now they are the embarrassment of the NFL.
Right.
So
That's right. We're the Patriots now.
It.
Look at me. Look at me. Coming up at 7:35, Ron Halber, Jewish Community Relations Council, talk about the ceasefire in Israel, and then at 8:35, the sheriff of Frederick County, Chuck Jenkins. That there is Patrice Onwuka on this Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It feels like a Friday.
Yes,
and I'm Larry O'Connor. But Julie Gunlock is back tomorrow and Thursday, and the two of us will be live for your Thanksgiving and Black Friday festivities, so make sure you tune in. That's all coming up. First, though...
Don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did.
Yeah, that's right. Those are wise words from the woman who was almost president. Charlie Spiering wrote the book about her. He's now a political reporter at the Daily Mail, and his book is Amateur Hour, Kamala Harris in the White House. Charlie, somebody, some malicious individual out there has photoshopped that video with her holding a bottle of Hennessy. I don't know if you've seen that. So I do want to get to the nuts and bolts of the postmortem of the Harris campaign and what people are saying and what her future is. But the burning question about this video that has been put out there, and maybe you know the answer because of your reporting on her, is she a big drinker? I mean, everyone's saying she seems drunk, but she might not be. But is that a thing? Were people in her inner circle as vice president sort of saying that?
Well, Larry, we know that she does enjoy a cocktail now and again, and she, being from California, she also appreciates good wine. In fact, during her vacation in Hawaii, she stayed at a very fancy place that was connected to the sort of the winery world. So she does have she did just spend 8 days on vacation in Hawaii, so maybe that's why she sounds a little bit rough.
That still, listen, we've all been there, Kamala, trust me. Well, one quick follow-up on that, Charlie, because listen, the video was fun and people are going crazy with it. But there is another underlying story here. The fact that the Democrats, in their wise judgment on their official account, put that video out there, I mean, did no one look at it and say, this does not make her look good? Or was that the point? There's still people who work for the party and work for the old Biden campaign that became her campaign that don't like her, right? That are probably a little bitter over the way things worked out.
Absolutely. There's nobody watching out for Kamala Harris now. They're not necessarily looking for her future political career. And when it comes to people taking away their power, Kamala Harris will have her power taken away in January when the new president and vice president are inaugurated. So nice sentiment, but the reality is that she's only got a couple weeks left.
Well, picking up on that thread about her political future, Charlie, I mean, is she really thinking that she can be the top of the ticket in 4 years from now? Or is she going to maybe aim a little bit lower, look at the governorship in California? Or is she really just cooked at this point? We played a clip from one of the mega donors saying that the fact that she mismanaged the campaign's finances so incredibly and the campaign so incredibly means that she's disqualified to run for any office in the future. Where do you think the chips are going to fall for her?
Well, I've talked to some Democrats, but in Washington, and what they're saying is because of her ambition and because of her age, there's absolutely reason to expect her to run again in 4 years. And so Republicans and conservatives are saying, great, let's do it again. This was fun. Let's have another round. But Democrats, on the other hand, are a little more skeptical. Look, there's a lot of blaming around, a lot of people blaming Biden, But a lot of people just making excuses for what happened to Kamala Harris. They said they did the best they could. It's with a shortened campaign. If they had just had more time, they could have built her up and sold her to the American people. And that's the way Democrats are really feeling. They feel like it was unfair that they had to run a shortened campaign and they didn't have enough time to get her across the finish line.
I mean, listen, I don't want to dispel them of that myth, but I got to tell you, you had Donald Trump, who they spent 8 years sliming and slandering as a Russian asset, twice impeached. They threw court cases at him. He was a convicted felon. They called him Hitler. They called him a fascist. And now they're saying, well, in retrospect, the guy was just unbeatable. No one could have won that election. Is that really what we're supposed to believe?
That's what you've been seeing after David Plouffe and some of the campaign managers and campaign advisors went on Pod Save America to discuss the loss. That's really what they're saying, and it's really quite remarkable to see no real deep soul searching, just a lot of complaining and blaming.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so picking up on that complaining and blaming, we've heard a lot of things other than, for example, the questions that the media asked, that the media was unfair to her, that the media asked questions that kind of sunk her campaign. These are from some of her inner circle aides. Is there any sense in their heads whatsoever that maybe they just had a bad candidate and that people actually did know who Kamala Harris was and chose not to support her because they knew who she was and because they knew what she was connected to, which is the current administration?
Yeah, that's some real gaslighting on their part, because there was a big gap, and even the media kind of questioned why she had just gone radio silent after she became the nominee, and their excuse was, oh, well, we were just so busy, we just didn't have time. And that's honestly not a good excuse. So you had plenty of time. If they trusted Harris and to put her on camera, they would have done so. But there's a big secret that either Kamala Harris was unwilling or they were afraid of putting her on these massive shows. And what's telling is that they complained that they didn't like the questions that Kamala Harris was being asked. They thought that they were outright, Stephanie Cutter said outright, if the questions were dumb, they were petty, and they didn't think the questions were worthy of Kamala Harris, the presidential candidate for the Democrats.
Yeah,
well, you're not going to get very far with that attitude.
Charlie Spiering's our guest, and he wrote the book Amateur Hour, Kamala Harris in the White House. And, of course, you could do a sequel about Kamala Harris on the campaign trail here and still title it Amateur Hour, Charlie. Real fast, as she, obviously she's trying to keep her powder dry, keep her options open, maybe a run for the presidency again. What about governor of California? That's 2 years away, will that election be? Gavin Newsom is termed out. But I know in your reporting for this book, you opened up a little bit about or revealed a little bit about the inner workings of California politics. People think that all the Democrats are all friends over there. It's a Democrat-dominant state, and no. There's multiple factions, and the Newsom people hate the Kamala Harris people. The Kamala Harris people hate the Gavin Newsom people. So, what does that look like exactly? The way California politics is shaking down.
Yeah, Larry, I think it's possible, but I don't really think that it will happen. I think Kamala Harris views that as a step down. She views that as Gavin's job, something that she doesn't want necessarily. She is the historic first black woman vice president, and I don't think she feels it necessary to sort of backtrack into California, which is essentially a dead end. So I don't really see her running for governor, even though she might choose that. Honestly, what's happened with every vice president, and we know this, other than Dick Cheney, every single vice president has presidential ambitions, and are not going to let go of those easily. Look at Mike Pence, how he ran a campaign, even though there was very little support for him. So I fully expect Kamala Harris to run a campaign. The question is whether Democrats are willing to have her back.
All right, Charlie Spiering. We'll see. I mean, listen, it worked for Dick Nixon, right? He was vice president. He ran for president. He lost in it narrowly to Jack Kennedy. He went to run for governor of California. He lost that, but then he came back and ran for president. I mean, it's the obvious way to get to the White House. We'll see what happens.
Well,
Charlie,
look
happy.
At Joe Biden.
And look at Joe Biden.
That's right.
It's true.
No
Kamala's got 20 years ahead of her.
He made it somehow.
All right, Charlie. Listen, happy
Thank you,
Thanksgiving.
Charlie.
Good luck feeding that giant family of yours. Good Lord, you got.
Oh,
hopefully...
I've got 2 fridges full of food. It'll be amazing.
I believe it.
Oh, wonderful.
It's such a big family there in the happy Spiering household. Thanks, Charlie. Have a good one. Right in our backyard, the mayor of Frederick has now joined the chorus of radical activist Democrats around the country trying to push back on the incoming Trump administration. You'd expect this from Montgomery County, but not necessarily from Frederick County or the city of Frederick. You've seen the governor of Illinois, Jabba the Gut Pritzker there, saying that he won't cooperate with any deportation of illegal immigrants in his state. We saw the mayor of Denver say the same thing. We saw the governor of Massachusetts suggest the same thing. I think you should just, go ahead and let those places be sanctuaries and let the voters decide if that's the kind of leadership they want. But just in recent days, about 48 hours ago, the mayor of Frederick decided not only does he want to protect illegal, and again, let's just be clear, Tom Homan, the incoming border czar, has said illegal immigrant criminals will be the first ones deported. There's over 1 million of them here, and that's going to be the priority. The mayor of Frederick not only wants to protect those criminals, but he now wants to use taxpayer dollars to pay for their lawyers. Cut 11. Listen.
In many regards, this election cycle did not go as I had hoped.
In response to Trump's national immigration policies, Frederick Mayor Michael O'Connor pledging to carve out space.
Pause it right there, if we could, Michael. And by the way, this guy, Michael O'Connor, no relation, as if that had to be said.
I was going to ask you, Larry. Yeah.
No, but did you hear how that was framed? In a response to the election of Donald Trump. Who in the hell is the mayor of Frederick to deliver a response on behalf of the people of that city to a presidential election? No one cares what the mayor of Frederick thinks and what he's going to do in response to a presidential election. Right there, the hubris and arrogance of oh my gosh, Trump's been elected. Everyone, hold your breath until we hear the response from the mayor of Frederick, Maryland. What an arrogant jerk. Okay, sorry. Go forward now.
District Mayor Michael O'Connor pledging to carve out space in his local budget for a legal advocacy fund, which would use tax dollars to pay undocumented immigrants attorneys' fees as they fight deportation.
Ensuring they have the legal support they need to stand strong and remain in this community they have chosen to call home.
O'Connor explaining his intention is to allocate the money to organizations already providing similar legal services, helping them expand the number of people they're able to support, although he's still determining the exact dollar amount to set aside.
Yeah.
This is interesting. So, Larry, I'm doing a little bit of research into Frederick. This is actually not the first time where they're making news. Just a few months ago, the municipality, the city approved, the Board of Aldermen, approved a vote to allow non-citizens to vote in local elections. So this is probably just another step in Frederick County's ability to make room for illegal immigration. So not only now can you live there illegally, you can vote in local elections. And by the way, if the federal government comes knocking on your door to get violent criminals who are illegal aliens out, the mayor of the city of Frederick is now saying, "Oh, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to actually pay for them to stay here and pay for the legal bills."
Yeah, it's amazing to me.
It's crazy.
I'm thrilled that the city of Frederick is so awash in cash and has so much surplus that they can pay for people's legal fees. It's interesting. If an American citizen has any trouble with the federal government, will the city of Frederick pay their legal fees too? Or is this for people who are non-citizens and have entered the country illegally? Also, they keep saying, oh, they contribute so much. Well, if these illegal immigrants in Frederick are contributing so much, that means they're making money. So why don't they use some of their own money to defend themselves against legal proceedings? A little bit more from the mayor of Frederick here. Here's cut 14, if you could, Michael, talking about whether the city of Frederick will cooperate with federal ICE authorities.
Our goal is to ensure everyone feels they have a place here in Frederick, no matter their background, culture, or identity. The Frederick Police Department, in particular, is committed to ensuring all residents feel safe in reporting crime and know that they will not be questioned about their immigration status. We refuse to aid and abet outside agencies attempting to detain, deport, or remove any residents from our community.
Yeah, funny he should use the term aid and abet when it comes to federal law enforcement officials doing their job. You know who's aiding and abetting is the mayor of Frederick. with that statement. That's the problem here. Coming up at 8:35, we'll have the sheriff of Frederick County, Chuck Jenkins, who does cooperate with ICE, who would be operating in the city of Frederick on some of those joint operations. I'm going to ask the sheriff, and you can let him know right now. Here's the question. If the mayor of Frederick, through his policies, obstructs the duties of a Frederick County deputy, will the mayor then be vulnerable to arrest for obstructing the actions of one of the sheriff's deputies? We'll ask him that question first when we get to him, coming up in just 1 hour. It's 7:23.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:37 on WMAL News Talk 105.9. It is O'Connor and Company, and it is a wonderful Thanksgiving Eve. Good morning. You're listening to Larry O'Connor, and I'm here today in for Julie. You know, that's your Friday gal, Patrice Onwuka. Happy Thanksgiving Eve, Larry.
Yeah, same to you. And Julie, we'll be back tomorrow and Friday.
Yes.
We'll be live. That's right. Live O'Connor and Company on your Thanksgiving. So make sure you tune in for that. That's right.
Now, we're at 8:35. Frederick County Sheriff Chuck Jenkins is going to be joining us and follow up to the story we just covered about Frederick County Mayor saying he's going to fight any sort of immigration plans from President Trump. But right now, we want to welcome in Ron Halber, CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington, D.C., on the incredible Israeli-Hezbollah ceasefire. Good morning, Mr. Halber.
Good morning.
Yeah,
morning.
is it
Well,
incredible? We're learning a lot now. Sorry, Patrice, let me just, because I'm now learning, listen, great headlines, just in time for Thanksgiving, peace in our time, thank God for Joe Biden. But Ted Cruz, senator from Texas, put out on his Senate page that this was basically the Biden administration forcing the ceasefire and imposing it on the government of Israel by threatening a full-scale UN Security Council arms embargo. Why are we threatening one side of the equation here when they were the ones who were the victim of the terror attacks at the hands of Hezbollah? Or am I reading too far into this, Mr. Halber?
Yeah, I don't think we know yet. I think that, I think that the fact that Trump won the election is probably the greatest impetus for Israel to go ahead and to sign a peace agreement, more than it had to do with any President Biden threat. And the administration is denying it, and it's not in the character of this administration, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, to want to impose an arms embargo, or I do believe they may have gone ahead and threatened to withhold support at a United Nations potential veto in the Security Council, but we don't know yet. That'll come out in the history book, but at some point. But we don't know right now. But I don't think that the administration would threaten an arms embargo on Israel. I don't believe that.
Okay.
So we're trying to get some details on this ceasefire agreement. It seems, though, that it's supposed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities. That's a quote, and that there's some sort of 60-day plan to draw down the conflict. Are you bought into the idea that this is going to be an end to this conflict? And I just can't. I just happen to don't trust Hezbollah that much as I would trust even Hamas. Every time Israel has gone into any sort of ceasefire agreements, it has not been Israel that broke those agreements. So what is your take?
Well, I think you're right, and I think history leans against us being successful. But then again, hopefully, it's a season of miracles. Remember, in 2006, Israel and Hezbollah fought a 34-day war that was ended by a resolution whose measures were never fully implemented by Hezbollah. The criteria of that resolution required Hezbollah to withdraw its forces 20 miles north of the border with Israel, and they simply never did, and it was never enforced. In fact, it began a rapid construction program which allowed it to acquire 150,000 missiles and arm 30,000 battle-hardened troops. So, again, the devil's in the details, but I think the Israelis have made it extremely clear that they won't tolerate any violation of the ceasefire. So in addition, in this current ceasefire, they have to come back to the Litani River, but the United States has apparently also given Israel a letter saying they will respect Israel's right to act against any threat they view as imminent. And regardless of a letter or not, the Israelis are simply not going to tolerate any reestablishment of Hezbollah in that area. And I think, missiles can fly beyond 20 missiles, but the idea behind this is different than in 2006. In 2006, it was to push Hezbollah back from terrorist attacks, but this time I think it was more designed to make sure that they're not in a position to do what Hamas did on October 6th.
We're speaking surprise
raid into Israel, and kidnap and kill civilians.
Yeah, and people should understand this is Hezbollah. This is not a peace deal or a ceasefire with Hamas, which is the terror group out of the Gaza territory that did the October 7th attacks. Ron Halber is our guest, CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council. Hezbollah exists because of the funding and support of the Iranian government. So is there any
total foreign implant, total violation of Lebanese sovereignty? Yeah.
So to that end, does this happen without Tehran's approval? And if so, what does that tell you, Mr. Halber, in terms of Tehran agreeing to this ceasefire?
It tells you that Iran is scared, and that's a good thing. Anytime Iran is scared, it's good for American interest and Israeli interest. Hezbollah has been decimated. We can't understand. Reports range between 50 and 80% of their military capability has been destroyed. Hezbollah is Iran's most valuable proxy and most powerful proxy in the Middle East, and they want to salvage what's left of it to let it build up. I do not believe the Israelis will permit them to build. I think if they see a truck moving, they're going to bomb. I think if they see weapons being shipped via land route via Syria into Lebanon, they're going to destroy it. So, I do not believe that the ceasefire I think the ceasefire will hold, but I think that there's still going to be military activity. In other words, they're going to keep it below the threshold of a full-scale war, because I think Hezbollah has come out very short in this war, and Israel has beat them dramatically. But at the same time, one would not put faith in Hezbollah to adhere to any agreement. So, therefore, I think the next 60. You really got to see what's going to happen in the next few days. Already, Israeli soldiers opened fire because they believe Hezbollah was trying to return some of its members south. But I think the Israelis are very determined to do this. You have to remember, this is not a very popular decision in Israel. Most Israelis reject the ceasefire. There's dramatic support for the war to continue in Lebanon to remove the threat of Hezbollah, but most Israelis want an end to the war in Gaza because they want the hostages back, and they believe their military aims have been accomplished. For the people in the north, the 60,000 Israelis who want to return home, they don't want to hear about a weakened Hezbollah. They want to hear about an eliminated Hezbollah.
Ron Halber, Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. Happy Thanksgiving to you, and a month ahead of time, because I might not speak with you, happy Hanukkah. I love it when Hanukkah and Christmas coincide. It's the best. And
well, it makes it a little hard for us, because when we want to invite elected officials, they're busy eating, so we can't go.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So we like it when they don't fall on the same day, so we can have a big party with everybody. But it's all right. We'll do it next year.
That's fair enough. But as a
Thank
Catholic,
you so much,
we're big fans of the Maccabees. So go Hanukkah,
thank
go
you.
Maccabees.
Merry Christmas to you, by the way.
Thank you. It's
You
7:44.
Join us for the 2024 Fisher House Radiothon Grand Finale, Friday, December 6th, from 3 to 6, live from Fair Oaks Mall on WMAL.
We've been noting, and we spent a lot of time yesterday talking with Sean Spicer. Did you hear Sean yesterday?
I did. I caught some of you guys in the morning yesterday while I was dropping off the kids.
Relatively well behaved, I have to say, for the most part.
Well, except when Joe Concha come on, then it was just all hands off
mayhem.
for the
It
three
was
of
a
you guys.
free-for-all, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've been discussing over the last couple of weeks, how this transition already feels so very different. Not only do they already have major positions filled, but most importantly, if you remember 8 years ago, there was a mood in this town of people who would normally naturally join a Republican administration. They didn't know what to make of Donald Trump. A lot of them were members of the establishment, and they felt threatened by Trump's new ideas and new approaches. And frankly, a lot of people shied away from joining the administration because they thought that the Russian collusion thing was a very real scandal that would get them caught up in some sort of legal proceedings, because we know how Democrats in this town work with lawfare. This is very different. People can't wait to join this administration.
Yes.
It's going to be a very different mood when things get started on the 20th day of January. And to that end, there are going to be very good conservative Republicans from all across the country moving to this area to be a part of the Trump administration. And Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia, well, he's trying to get out ahead of that. Take a look at this great video message he put out yesterday.
I'm Glenn Youngkin. Governor of the great Commonwealth of Virginia. And to the new members of President Trump's administration moving to the area, I want to personally invite you to make Virginia your home. Virginia is right across the Potomac. We offer a great quality of life, safe communities, award-winning schools where parents matter, and lower taxes than D.C. or Maryland. It's why so many people choose Virginia as the best place to live, work, and raise a family.
It's absolutely brilliant, and I'd love to see
really
Governor
compelling.
West more. So we're both Marylanders, and I got to ask you, do you think Governor Westmore would ever do that, saying, hey, if you work for the Trump administration, we'd love for you to set up home here in Maryland? His politics keeps him from doing. Of course he should.
He absolutely should, because we already know that people are boycotting. People who live in D.C. are boycotting allowing people to stay at their homes for inauguration on Airbnb. So this would be a great play for Maryland. We are 30 minutes into the city. If you live in like the Bowie area, Western Maryland, you've got a lot of parts of Maryland where people can get exactly what they're looking for.
He won't
and
do it.
by the way, we don't have a car tax. We don't have that. Virginia, Governor Youngkin did not mention that little piece. Governor Westmore, he should take advantage.
We have every other tax, trust me.
Well,
and as much as I love being a Marylander, let's be real. I mean, I think that Virginia makes the better case. Here's what we do want to say to anybody who might be, and how great would this be in Northern Virginia, in Arlington, in Alexandria, in Fairfax County, if an influx of Republican voters come in here and actually change things. But let me just give you a fair warning. Glenn Youngkin is only governor for one more year. You could move here. And if you don't activate, if you don't mobilize and organize and win some Sears victory 1 year from now, you're going to be stuck with a Democrat governor. And we've seen how quickly things can go south in Virginia. So, yes, move to the area, move to Virginia, and then keep the pressure on so we can have 4 more years of good governance. It's 7:53.